And now we're going to come to our meditation part of the service, which is going to be just like in our regular space. I'm going to invite you all to settle into your seats, take another deep breath and close your eyes. And after the reading, we will sit in silence for 2 minutes and then listen to a piece that Joanne has offered us that's pre-recorded. These words come from Jan Richardson, who is a minister, an artist, and an author, and she wrote them several years ago, but they seem to fit this moment. And this piece is titled, Blessing When the World is Ending. Look, the world is always ending somewhere. Somewhere the sun has come crashing down. Somewhere it has gone completely dark. Somewhere it has ended with the gun, the knife, the fist. Somewhere it has ended with the slammed door, the shattered hope. Somewhere it has ended with the utter quiet that follows the news from the phone, the television, the hospital room. Somewhere it has ended with a tenderness that will break your heart. But listen, this blessing means to be anything but morose. It has not come to cause despair. It is simply here because there is nothing a blessing is better suited for than an ending. Nothing that cries out more for a blessing than when a world is falling apart. This blessing will not fix you, will not mend you, will not give you false comfort. It will not talk to you about one door opening when another closes. It will simply sit itself beside you among the shards and gently turn your face toward the direction from which the light will come, gathering itself about you as the world begins again. Though I do not have a theology of heaven and hell, I will say for a moment each morning this week before I turn on to the news, there's a little flash of what fresh hell awaits the today. It's been an intense week, what with all the world-changing pandemic crisis happening. And spring here at last. Spring in the time of COVID-19 is a new thing. It's a spring of unknowing, of learning to live differently, of fear and confusion and becoming worry machines. It's a time of vulnerability. Spring has brought this new world, one where we so painfully see the impact of the interconnected nature of life. And it's been a shock. I'm having some trouble adjusting to this outside-in time. And although I am a natural introvert who's happy at home, I do feel like I stepped through the looking glass and I can't quite get my bearings. I'm missing being at UCM because I'm in social isolation, and I'm finding myself in need of things to do to feel that I'm contributing. I'm in need of my friends and family, and I'm finding myself especially in need of my spiritual practices. This is a time when we need spirituality to maintain a sense of that greater whole, of the mystery, of the divine, whatever it calls to you. And I find I need ways to keep my core self centered, to find that still small point within where I can breathe and be calm and ride out these storm surges, these worries and fears that are bubbling up. So I have a gratitude practice. I use guided meditation, nature walks, and journal. These practices help me manage my worries and breathe through and slow down and revive that spiritual core strength that we all have. When I practice regularly, my anxiety recedes and I can reclaim that great spiritual truth, that this too shall pass. The pandemic won't be painless and it won't be without its consequences. Many of us will suffer in all sorts of ways. We may be vulnerable physically. We may be vulnerable financially. We might be one of those being overburdened by work at this time, or desperately lonely for human contact during this time of isolation. And it's going to be hard, but the COVID-19 pandemic will come to an end, and the magnificent, wondrous whole of all that is will still be there. And I need the discipline of spiritual practice to hold on to this knowledge that we, as always, suffer and survive. And we do so collectively. And I need spiritual workouts to strengthen my inner core. So I'm going to encourage all of you to find a practice that works for you. Whatever it is that brings you to a state of calm grace. Dance, prayer, lectio divina. Find a Pilates of the spirit and practice it as often as you can. It will make a difference. And I'm going to invite you to just take a moment right now to think of what you might want to try. It might be an old practice that you've let slide, or it might be something that's calling you, piquing your interest that you've never tried before. Just take a moment to think about what spiritual practice you might be able to practice in these days. Tend to your spiritual core. And as things get worse, whether that's a rise in illness or lockdown or further personal struggles, hold on to your values. The crisis should not diminish your principles, but reveal them. This is a time that will show what matters to you, both the noble and the petty. I know that I have discovered my love of reality TV dating shows, and I will be watching the season finale of Love is Blind tonight. But I have also been seeking beauty in art and in nature, and I'm hungry for those stories of compassion that are abounding around. The grocery stores holding separate hours for elders and the vulnerable, musicians offering music from their balconies to cheer their neighbors. This is a time to turn to your Unitarian Universalist principles and to live them. What does world community mean to you in this global climate? How can you practice justice, equity, and compassion? How do you hold on to and uplift the inherent worth and dignity of each person in this time of crisis? These values, our values, matter more now than ever. Many of you who are younger and healthy have offered already practical support in running errands for those in isolation. And our Social Justice Action Committee have given us ways to help the local food banks and shelters trying to care for the most vulnerable. These are expressions of our values, and I'm so grateful for them. Live in these strange days in ways that reveal the principles that you hold dear to your heart. In what ways are you committing in this time to the principles of Unitarian Universalism? We'll take a moment for you to consider. Live your values. As you use, we know we are part of the interdependent web of life, and we see with COVID-19 how those threads can become danger zones. But I believe we have a moral obligation as Unitarian Universalists to heal that web, to tend to the connections that are stretching thin with social distancing and fear, and help them become healthy once more. And so we, as people of the chalice, try to grow those healing connections, to choose kindness and generosity over and over again. And we may have to fight our own fears and worries to make that choice, but that's part of the process. Don't hoard, don't hide. Wash your hands and practice social distancing. Give these gifts to the world. And find a way to share your own personal gifts, whether that's a song or a grocery run. We need organizers, we need bakers, we need craftspeople, we need technical geniuses, we need poetry. All of us have gifts we can share in this time. For me right now, I've been feeling like we're in a giant bouncy castle, going every which way, always in motion. You get your footing for a second and then boom, falling over. While bouncy castles can be fun, even energizing for a time, they are exhausting to stay in for too long. So I'm finding I can't stay in this bouncy castle of that news cycle of shifting social systems and involving pandemic news, that I have to find a way to bounce out towards the exit. And so I find myself stabilizing through spiritual practice and living my values. And I think we can all do that, to look for ways to help, lift up beauty, and look for the hope. When it's dark, lean in towards the light. In the midst of fear and suffering, there are shafts of sunlight that nourish our spirits and heal our connections, always. Just being here in community once more is part of that. We are in the early stages of the pandemic here, and it may bring great grief and suffering for us. But it is also spring, a time of life beginning anew, of that irresistible flush of green growth and longer days. And spring has come again, as it has for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years, and will for thousands more. Life is long, and we will find our way through the troubles together. This Chalice community is here for you. Let spring enter your heart and carry you into the light. Tend to your spirit, live your UU principles, and lean in toward the light. So say we all.